Welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. GPU prices in January 2024 are absolutely insane. They have gone absolutely insane. We've got RTX 4000 series supercards launching, GPUs launching from AMD, and we've got price cuts from AMD. Will we see price cuts from NVIDIA and Intel as well? We'll go over the best GPU for gaming at every budget level for 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. Remember, if you get value out of the video, give it a like, so it makes a huge difference to the channel, and of course, subscribe. Click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. Hey, with that, let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by Micro Center, my favorite tech place on earth. Great news! Micro Center just opened its 26th US store, with Charlotte, North Carolina coming in early 2024. Micro Center has insane winter savings right now with great deals like this Ryzen 7800X 3D for just $369. Or make it a bundle with B650 motherboard and 32GB of DDR5 RAM for just $499. Or grab the Lenovo Legion 5 gaming laptop with Ryzen 7 CPU and RTX 4060 GPU for just $999. Check out the great deals using the link in the video description. Let's jump into those GPU prices for January 2024. And yes, we're going to start on the NVIDIA side, then we'll go to Intel and AMD because AMD is actually making some price cuts as well. Let's start off with NVIDIA though, because we got 3 new GPUs on their side. Yes, 1 more GPU launching on AMD as well. And I got some good news. If you've been hoping that the 4090s would not be sold out forever, obviously with China and the ban that's going into place by the US State Department from shipping 4090s to China, has really put a damper on 4090 sales anywhere outside of China because they rushed all those cards into China at the last minute, selling them at huge markups. But if you look right now, shipping from the US, and you do have to pay shipping, unfortunately, on some of these cards, they don't typically charge that, but they're kind of just reaming you right now. They probably figure, why not an extra 20 bucks? You can see 4090s are back in stock in the US at Newegg. They're massively overpriced, of course, but probably portends good things. If you want a 4090, I might hold off a little bit. Although honestly, if the card that you want is already there, just pull the trigger. At this point, the volatility is such that I might just decide, hey, let's grab it. 4080 Super, we're expecting to launch at the end of the month, January 31st, $999. I've just got the placeholder price in here. We'll talk about the performance of the 4070 Super, the 4070 Ti Super, and the 4080 Super, as well as the 7600 XT 16GB card later in the video. But for right now, let's take a look at the 4080. That card's actually being discontinued. That's why the price has actually gone up to $1,179. Because if you take a look at this, there's not many models left, and they're trying to get rid of whatever's left here, probably before the 4080 Super launches, because why would you buy this card for $1,179? It's weaker than the 4080 Super that's coming, that's supposedly going to MSRP for $999. Just doesn't make any sense. Why you pay $200 extra for one of these cards? And you can see most of these listings at this point are out of stock. I honestly don't understand why they haven't hugely discounted this to get rid of them. Maybe they're just going to eat these losses, or maybe they're just going to try and find some poor sucker out there who's going to pay these marked up prices. We've got the 4070 Ti Super coming in at $799. Again, launching imminently here as I'm doing this. We already have a really good estimation in terms of the performance of it. But let's jump to the 4070 Ti because there's another card. NVIDIA is like, lol, suckers, you bought the bad one. Now we're going to ship out the good one. And I just don't know what to tell folks right now. You can get one of these cards, sure, for $700, I think with the math there on the Zotac one, the $25 promo code, comes out to like $744. It's roughly what it was during the holiday shopping period. But at the same time, for like, what, $50 more, you're going to get 16 gigs of VRAM and a super more performative card, See what I did there? So I just don't understand what's going on with these cards. There's potential possibly at the end of the month, we'll see a bigger discount. I think they want to right now really force those 4070 Ti Super sales. So they'll probably just kind of keep this as basically sales bait. Oh, look, you could upgrade for only $50 more. But let's jump down to the 4070 Super, which did come out, has already come out at $599. $599. We'll also take a look at the rest of NVIDIA's lineup as well. And some people are calling this a sales disaster for NVIDIA because look at that. Those cards are just not selling out. And we are hearing leaks and rumors that basically the sales volume for the 4070 Super was actually a lot less than for the 4070. So that's even worse. That means they had fewer cards at launch, and even though they had fewer cards, they still didn't sell the fewer cards out. Now, there's a couple of models that are sold out right now. Some of these models I never actually saw come into stock, so it's possible that the listing's there, but they never had any stock to begin with, so they're just listing as out of stock because they are expecting eventually to get these cards, especially like if you look at the really high-end ones like the Asus Strix and the Aorus cards. which are kind of silly prices, $699, $759. But if you look at this, if you want if you want a 4070 Super 12 gigabyte card, and I think that's probably the big problem with this card is the 12 gigabytes, not the performance of it, then yeah, I mean, you can get one right now for $599. You can get a Seuss card, you can get a Zotac. If you want to spend $10 more, you can get some of the other models. You can get a white one. So not looking really, really good, but I think there may be another explanation for that, and we'll talk more about that in the news. Over to the RTX 4070, down $5 from the holiday shopping period, although not from the Black Friday period, which we saw it get down to $519. Right now, if you want one of these cards, it's kind of hard to argue to get it because, again, for like $60 more, you'd have the faster card. It's not as cheap as the 7800 XT. It feels like a card that's really in no man's land right now. And honestly, if you look at it, most of these models are actually very, very close to the $599. I'm just not quite sure what NVIDIA is going to do with this. Could pretend huge price cuts in the future on the 4070, or maybe they'll just let it ride. Closing out the 4060 Ti, 16 gigabyte, the 4060 Ti, really no change in those cards, down $10 for the 4060 Ti, 16 gigabytes. No real big change for the rest of NVIDIA's lineup and the RTX 4060. I will note the older RTX 3000 series cards, I'm not tracking most of them anymore. They've completely sold out over the holiday period. They're not coming back in stock, it looks like. The only one that I think remains relevant is the RTX 3060 12 gigabyte. There's one model at 284. The rest are like around 300. So we may be seeing the end of the 3060 12 gigabyte, which was probably NVIDIA's best seller for either this generation or the previous generation. All right, let's spend 30 seconds on Intel GPUs. We are expecting Battlemage to be launching this year, and Intel did confirm that. So we don't have a firm date on that. But if you look at the ARC cards right now for A770, really no price change. A750, maybe it's just that they don't have a promotion going on it right now, up 17% to 209. That's pretty insane. And then we have the A580 at 179. These cards, I think Intel, you gotta cut the prices on them because we're gonna see that, AMD is much more competitive right now and their drivers work on day one. Let's jump into AMD GPU prices January 2024 because there have been some price cuts, but there's also maybe a pause going on. They may be waiting to see what happens with some of the NVIDIA super cards that are launching. Let's start off with the RX 7900 XTX. You're like, Jason, $979 for that GPU? What's going on? It was almost $100 less, or at least $70 less in December. And actually on flash sales, you could find it even a little bit cheaper, closer to $899. I think what's going on right now with these cards is, number one, they completely sold out over the holiday shopping period. So you're seeing a lot of them come back into stock. And I think AMD is waiting for the 4080 Super to launch closer to January 31st before making some price cuts. So a couple more weeks, probably wouldn't buy one of these at $979 right now. If you picked one up over the holidays, especially close to that $899, $900 price point, you probably did yourself a solid right there. Then, of course, we've got this 7900 XT where AMD has instituted price cuts right now. In fact, that GPU is almost as cheap as it's ever been. The cheapest I've ever seen it was $699 during the July Prime Day event where they just offered massive discounts on it. And that was a flash sale. It wasn't just you could pick it up anytime. You had to pick it up right then. So yeah, $709, that's pretty good. They've also reduced the MSRP of this card to $749 officially. That's an official MSRP reduction. I don't really get all hot and bothered about MSRP reductions because we know MSRP means nothing except the launch of the card, and then it's all about street pricing, right? So right now you can pick up a lot of these different cards for $7 or $9. This is supposedly a kind of a more limited time offer. Obviously, they want to respond to both the 4070 Ti Super launching and the 4070 Super by putting this card kind of in between them. And then, of course, we got the 7800 XT, and I got good news on that one. While yes, in December it was $499, it floated way up to like $550. $550. Now, it did sell out over the holiday period. Then it came back into stock early in January, and it came in stock at $550. It was not a good price, and I would not have recommended that price. But as you can see, now we got cards at $499. You can get the ASRock Challenger. That's actually a pretty good card, by the way. Then we have some other models right around that $500 price point. I'd love to see them get even closer, but I think AMD knows they've got a winner on their hands here. If we were going to see price cuts on this card, I think we probably would have already seen them with the 4070 Super launching. I think the big advantage of this card, gamers are like, hey, I almost bought a 3070 8 gigabyte versus a 6800 16 gigabyte. You could have really made a bad decision and gotten the 3070 and feel like I can't even play all the games at 1080p anymore. So VRAM is a premium in 2024, and honestly, AMD's got it right now. Whether you like it or not, AMD has that advantage over the 4070 Super. All right, let's quickly punch through the rest of the lineup. There are some interesting spots here. Not the 7700 XT 12 gigabyte though. Still $429, still head scratching price, but I think maybe it starts to make more sense because if you notice on the list, there's no RX 6800 non-XT 16 gigabyte anymore. That card was selling for what, $369 or $359 during the holiday shopping period. It performs slightly better than the 7700 XT and has more VRAM, or about the same, and has more VRAM. And that was really kind of making the 7700 XT make absolutely no sense. But I can only find one listing right now. It's still out there. I'll leave it linked down in the video description. If you want to pull the trigger, it's $399 right now. Still a very, very good value. But RIP 6800, largely sold out. Same fate kind of awaits the 6800 XT in that it largely is sold out. There's only 2 models left at Newegg right now. They're both by ASRock. Now, it's entirely possible we'll see this out there, but it's still $499. You probably get the 7800 XT because it's got AV1 encoding. It might be, it trade blows basically with it in certain titles. Yeah, I just think this card's probably going away. It was $439 during the Black Friday holiday shopping period. Really good price if you picked one up. The big battle shaping up right now in the next week or so is going to be the RX 6700 and 6750 XT 12 gigabyte versus the RX 7600 XT 16 gigabyte card that's launching here in just a couple of days. And honestly, given where we think the performance of these cards is going to come in based on the projections that we did, you can check out our 7600 XT announcement video for where I think the performance is going to come in. It's going to fall slightly short, I think, of the 6700 XT. And I told AMD this when we sat down and met with them. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for people to go out and buy a 7600 XT when you can still get one of these, I said, for $299. And, it looks like they've responded to me by removing all the promo codes out there. I don't think they did it just because I said that. Obviously, I think they want to make this card as competitive as they can with the 7600 XT, which I still think is a great card. I just, in a universe where this card exists with 12 gigs of VRAM at $299, it just didn't make a lot of sense. Then, of course, we've got some price increases for the 6600 XT, 6650 XT. I think they just basically go back to where they were November. You lose some of those holiday discounts. Same with the RX 6600, which, I thought maybe was going to completely sell out. I still see what seems like a good amount of stock, also good amount of card listings on Amazon around these kind of $200-ish prices. And goodness knows, NVIDIA has completely given up on this segment of the market. Really, your only competition here is Intel. And yes, we'll talk about which one to buy. But the one advantage AMD continues to have is all their game drivers work on day one releases. Intel, you got to wait, sometimes up to a month. Let's take a quick look at the RTX 4070 Super. Where did it come in? Okay, we got testing from a number of different outlets out there. And honestly, it diverged quite a bit more than it normally does. I'm not really sure what that is. Not to say any of these folks did anything wrong. It's just sometimes maybe they got a different card. But I'm finding right now that the 4070 Super for TechSpot, aka Hardware Unboxes data, they always do great testing. It came in about 12% faster. Now they have some titles in here that do turn on ray tracing by default. If you look at Tom's Hardware, this is just the rasterization. It pulls a little tighter here, about 8-9% instead. And then similarly, Gamers Nexus data, about that 8 or 9%. So that's what we found, 8 or 9% difference between the 4070 Super and the 7800 XT, with obviously the 4070 trailing behind. And at the current price of 4070, doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's talk about that 4070 Super sales disaster. That's what folks are calling it right now. There's been some leaks in terms of what retailers are saying about it from Moore's Law is Dead. I'll leave his video link down in the description. Check it out. It's not good stuff for NVIDIA if it all turns out to be very, very much what all retailers are seeing out there. I think, though, we can explain why people aren't that interested in this card. Let's look at this poll. I polled you, the audience, which of the 4 GPUs launching in January were you most interested in? This RX 7600 XT 16 gigabyte. That shocked me, by the way. Now, at the time, we thought it might have 12, but it ended up with 16 gigabytes. 31% of you were interested in a budget tier GPU or more mid-ranges GPU, I guess, if you go by olden day pricing, 31%. On top of that, only 10% of you were interested in the 4070 Super 12 gigabyte. And the GPU that I was shocked at is most of you were interested in NVIDIA 4070 Ti Super 16 gigabyte, 21%, as compared to everything else, because that actually turns that GPU into a 4K GPU from a 1440p-ish GPU for $800. It actually makes it maybe a good value. So I think what we're seeing here, gamers have gotten the message about VRAM, and if you're gonna come offering with just a slight performance bump, but no more VRAM, they don't have time for you right now. They're going to buy something else. So that's the 4070 Super. But what about the other cards? The 4070 Ti Super, the 4080 Super, and of course the RX 7600 XT 16 gigabyte. Now, I already punched through these in much more detail in our CES Roundup video. I'll leave that link down in the video description. So really quickly, I pulled some tech spot data here. This is from the RTX 4070. They're just showing the 7900 XTX and the 4080. We're expecting a 5% bump on the 4080, so that would basically roughly tie it with the 7900 XTX, which often leads it depending at 1440p or 4K. We have some newer data, obviously, with the RTX 4070 Super review that they put out. And if we just took this at 1440p, we're expecting about a 10% bump. That would basically bump the 4070 Ti Super up to just right above the 7900 XT, basically neck and neck with those GPUs. And I did my own guesstimate earlier for the previous video, so let's just take a look at that. I believe, just based on the specs alone, that we're going to see about a 10% performance bump, could be a little bit less than that, and that would get the RX 7600 XT just up to that 68-70 FPS at 1440p, just below the 6700 XT 12 gigabyte. Let's jump into the best GPU for gaming January 2024. So if you're looking for a graphics card to buy, these should be on your list. If you're not familiar with how we do this, we basically take all the cards that we've been talking about, all the new ones. We also take used cards with 8 gigabytes or more of VRAM, and we put in both used and new pricing and their performance to get a price to performance. Then we divvy them up 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. Remember, this spreadsheet is linked down in the video description. You can jump in it. These are all US-based prices. I will say used prices have gone up about 10-15% in some instances over the holiday shopping period to now. So that has adjusted things. So jump into that spreadsheet, check it out. Jumping over the best GPU under $200 right now, January 2024. I technically cheated a little bit. I expanded it to $210. I just want to make sure we can see the RX 6600, the ARC A750, those other new cards in there as well. Taking a look at this, not a lot has changed in terms of the under $100. The GTX 1070 continues to be the absolute value champ right now. But the RX 570, another alternative if you don't have a ton of money and you're building a gaming PC with a used GPU, or maybe you're just upgrading one. Although I will say that RX 570 has come up to $66 from about $40. Huge price inflation. Could be that we're at the end of those cards. I still like the GTX 1080 Ti with 11 gigs of VRAM. However, the price has come up on that to an average selling price on eBay of $187 over the last 30 days. Don't love that price. I'd much rather, I think, look for a new card at this point. In terms of new offerings, around $179, you do have that ARC A580. It's a good choice. I hate that they can't yet get day one driver support for all new on-release titles. But if you're in that budget category and you're kind of really scrimping and saving for maybe that ARC A580 kind of speaks to you, as long as you feel comfortable enough kind of troubleshooting your own games. Otherwise, honestly, the RX 6600, yes, I know it's technically at the bottom of the list, but it's the most powerful GPU you can get right now, brand new, for around $200. Jumping over the best 1080p GPU in January 2024. And remember, this is no compromises, so at least 10 gigs of VRAM or higher so we can turn up the details on everything. Still dominated by used GPUs at the top of the chart, of course. You don't get warranties with those. Somebody else has used them. But the GTX 1080, not a bad value. However, if you want NVIDIA, if you absolutely have to have NVIDIA, because NVIDIA has really absolutely abandoned this price point in terms of GPUs with enough VRAM, the RTX 2080 Ti kind of still, I know that it's come up in price. I know it was less than $300 a month ago. Still pretty good value. But if you're looking for a brand new GPU, it's kind of all AMD here. Unfortunately, the 3060 12 gigabyte had been a better value, but now at $249, but now that's $284. It's really kind of close enough that you might as well spring for a 6700 XT, 6750 XT, or go for the RX 7600 XT, which is kind of probably right behind in terms of performance. Now, that's an estimated performance, and we will adjust it if necessary. But honestly, it's got AV1 encoding. It does have some other advantages to it. To me, it's a toss-up. I'd probably still go with that 6700 XT, but I wouldn't blame anybody who went the other way. Jumping over the best 1440p GPU, January 2024. So this is where the graphics score is 220 or greater. We've got 12 gigs or more VRAM, and there's no price cap. No price cap on that, so you'll see some additional cards in here. Now, we already talked about some of the used values in here, but some of the bigger used values that cost a little bit more, like the RTX 3080 12 gigabyte, phenomenal value right now, as is the 6950 XT. You're gonna pay a little bit more for them this month than you would a month or or so ago because used prices have come up 15, even 20% on some of these cards, which is kind of crazy. But if you're looking for something new, talked about the 6700 XT, good value. The 7800 XT right on its heels, really, really good value, continues to be $1.19 price to performance out there, really, really good. But we have a bunch of cards that are kind of stacked up, and that includes the ARC A770. If you're willing to give Intel a try and kind of gamble with some of their drivers, the RX 7600 XT, not bad out there. And the RX 6800 XT, again, I'm not sure I pulled the trigger on that over the 7800 XT. Even the 7700 XT has better value than the 4070 Super. I was a little befuddled by that. All it's really done is knock the 4070s off this list because this is usually a top 10 list. However, this is actually top 12 because I want people to see where the 4070 Super actually landed. And unfortunately, yeah, slightly more performance is nice, but the price went up by $50. So that's why it's kind of just not getting all the way there. Moving over to the best 1440p GPU January 2024 targeting a 240 Hz refresh rate. So now we're looking for a score of 340 or greater on the GPU and 12 gigs or more of VRAM. And honestly, well, let's just skip the used section up top. 7800 XT, 7700, man, AMD is crushing this, absolutely crushing this right now. The 4070 Super, look, you can see that it's come in better than the 4070, but not that much better, not that much better. We only have a little bit more performance on there, and that's just it. And again, $50 more. The card costs $50 more. In fact, the card actually costs $65 more right now than the cheaper RTX 4070s you can get out there. Really kind of on par with those super expensive cards like the 7900 XE, the 4070 Ti Super, which actually, hey, makes a pretty decent showing on this list, seeing as the 4070 Ti never appeared on this list really before. So 2 thumbs up there, NVIDIA. You actually might have something going. Now, of course, we are going to adjust those GPU scores if and when they change based on actual reviews, not just the specs. I do feel pretty comfortable with some of these estimates, though. We've got tons of Ada Lovelace cards out there in order to be able to draw at least a pretty good idea of where these cards are going to be. It's not like it's the first or second release after all. So honestly, right now, yeah, just a lot of Team Red in the middle, and honestly, I kind of feel like NVIDIA's got to start doing some price cutting. Let's jump into the best 4K GPU January 2024. So this is where the graphics score is 430 or greater, and we've got 16 gigs or more of VRAM. And let's just start off by saying, hello, 4070 Ti Super. Welcome to the list. The 4070 Ti, we just never made this list before because it only had 12 gigs of VRAM. So it's nice to see this another alternative up here. And honestly, it doesn't do that bad against the 7900 XT. 7900 XT, just because it's almost $100 cheaper, even though it's got slightly less performance to it, better price to performance. But I'm going to tell you, if you want NVIDIA, I can see why so many people were excited for the 4070 Ti Super. It feels like an actual 3080 class of card, and I say 3080, it feels like the actual 80 series card that you should have gotten, months and months and months ago, but we've got it now. And it beats in terms of value the 7900 XTX. The XTX, obviously more performance, but $979 right now. I really do think AMD probably will adjust that price. We'll have to wait and see. The 4080 Super, yeah, it comes about the same place as the 7900 XTX in terms of its overall value. 16 gigs of VRAM versus 24. I don't actually think that's going to make a big difference, at least not in the next 4 or 5 years. Who knows though? And of course, the 4080, a lot of folks say, well, NVIDIA's got the superior feature set. So I do think AMD has some price cutting to do, although I know not everybody's interested in ray tracing. And the 7900 XTX, it's not that like that card is a slouch at ray tracing, just the 4080 Super is going to be better. And of course, the 4090, look, it's actually back up here on the list. It's in stock. The value is terrible, but that's the card you're going to get. If I just got all the money and I just want the biggest, baddest GPU, that's the one I'm going to get. I'm joined by Mr. Bear to play everyone's favorite game. Should you buy now or should you wait? Well, if you're a cat, you sleep. I don't really know what to tell you in terms of should you buy now or should you wait across the entire market, but I'm going to tell you for the vast majority of the market, I think you're waiting. We still got GPUs launching. AMD's making a price cut on the 7900 XT. Will they make a price cut on the XTX? Will NVIDIA make price cuts on like the 4070? So I just think there's a big price war going on. And at least in most segments, probably the answer is going to be to wait. Let's take it segment by segment. Let's start off with the ultra budget market right now. So $100 or less. you're probably going to pick up a used GTX 1070. I don't really see that changing a lot. Yes, those prices will probably smooth out, but we also just may be seeing the end of those mining GPUs being sold out to the market. So that might be kind of a new price. For those of you looking to spend around $200-ish to up to $300, you have a couple of different options right now, but honestly, at the budget options, it's either going to be an ARC A750, maybe an A58 if you don't have that much money, or an RX 6600. I prefer the 6600. I prefer to recommend the 6600 because that's less problems that you leave down in the comments saying, hey, Jason, I don't know how to get this to work. More in the $300 range, it's going to be a toss-up between the 6700 XT 12 gigabyte and the RX 7600 XT 16 gigabyte. You could really go either way there. I could see people saying, hey, I just want to play it safe with 16 gigs of VRAM. Absolutely fair, especially now that they raised the price on the 6700 XT to make the other one look good. And I think those cards are going to be absolutely fine. It's good to see options in that range with that much VRAM. That is really, really refreshing. As we go up to about the $500 level, kind of more in the mid range, things get a little tougher. I just think you want to put a big time out until everything launches, see what's going to happen. Maybe the 4070s will be super discounted. Maybe we'll see the 7700 XT 12 gigabyte card also get some discounts in there. Now the 6800 sold out. So I would wait across the board. And then certainly at the high end, you're just waiting. Wait. So that's where I see the market right now. Let me know down in the comments, what current card are you looking for? What budget are you looking for? And are you buying now or are you going to wait? If you got value out of this video, give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here who's so asleep. And of course, subscribe, click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. Hey, speaking of cool content, did you want to see the deeper dive that we did on CES? There's tons of new OLED gaming monitors coming. There's new CPUs to talk about from Intel and AMD. Check it out right here. I'll leave the whole video linked. It was about a 10 or 11 minute breakdown, pretty quick. And we'll catch you on the next one.